This takes just a minute. How's your family, Richa?
And they're doing fine. Everybody's staying healthy and on task, pretty much
Right.
on task. So
Good.
it's all good. Thank you. And how's your family?
Good. It's good. I have two teenagers, so we're,
Okay.
12, 14 and 17. So everybody's
And
good. Yeah,
I have a preteen, so he just turned 12, and a 15-year-old.
nice. All right. Well, I really appreciate you taking time to chime in today through from California. Our mutual friend, Mike Tedesco over at PayPal introduced us, so I'm grateful for that. Um, and the reason I wanted to talk with you, especially it's May 5th, 2020, we're all going through COVID right now. And you are former head of HR at PayPal and GE. And one of my favorite videos of all time is Jack Welch talking about how he believes that HR is the most important part of any company. And I think a lot of times people get HR wrong. I don't think they understand it. And so because they don't understand it, they say, well, they just pick someone, you're HR, and then they outsource it. But I don't think anybody really gets it. And I think in today's world, you got to get it. You got to get HR right. And so give a little bit of I want to dive in with some strategies and things of that nature, but you have such an interesting background. Give everybody a little quick background of you and your HR strength.
Yeah, absolutely. So a little bit about myself, John. Well, first of all, thank you for
Yeah, of course. Thank
having me
you.
on your show. It's a pleasure to be here. My background, John, very humble beginnings. Was raised by two professors in a very small town in India, right above the poverty line. There was not a lot of money, but there was a lot of kind of learning and education, and
Hmm.
that was our ticket out of there. So of course, with a lot of support and push from my family and my parents, they got me to University of Delhi, where I did my first master's in organizational psychology. And that was my entry into HR. I didn't quite know what I was getting into, but I kind of fell into this profession. And thank God for that, because I really, really like what I do.
Good.
And
That's so important.
yes, absolutely. So that's how the journey started. And I worked in India for a few years, and always wanted to understand the business side of HR better, right? So I understood kind of the human side and behaviors and the needs of employees in an organization, but wanted to understand how different kind of systems and functions come together, and HR being a part of it, kind of to produce value for the employees, for the
Yeah.
societies, for stakeholders. So, I decided to take a break at that time. I was late 90s, and decided to come here with my husband. He got an assignment. I said, I'm coming along with you. And there we were in December of 1999 with 4 suitcases and $4,000. That's how life began here. Got into an MBA program at Wright State University, and then did my MBA from there. And that was the beginning of life here, what, about 18, 19 years ago. And I've had a blessed career in HR, in business, multiple firms, NCR Corporation, LexisNexis, Vantive, WorldPay, PayPal, and GE. And I've had 2 stints at PayPal. So it has been very fulfilling for me so far. And to answer your other question around the value of HR in an organization, if you think critically, up to 80% of many companies and their OpEx sits with human capital.
Right.
Right. So it's people who drive the business forward. That's where you make the biggest impact, right? When you talk about taking your business strategies forward, who works on it? It's the human beings, right? And HR kind of being that custodian of that function and leading the human capital strategy forward has to be one of the most important functions that any company, any CEO can value and nurture, because it can do magic for any company.
Let's talk about that, because let's talk about how companies, what HR looks like when it's right and what HR looks like when it's a band-aid. Because I always thought that they should change the name of HR, because I think some people think HR is just benefits and maybe somebody you can talk to. But I really want to, if you could kind of create kind of like a framework around what an ideal HR looks like. And it doesn't matter if it's a big company or a small company. The model may be bigger or smaller, but I think it's somewhat the same. So can you kind of just talk about that so people can wake up a little bit and get some awareness?
Absolutely. I think old-fashioned HR is very siloed, very reactive, doing just the basics of running the function, which includes, doing some employee relations and reacting to the issues when they arise, or benefits. By no means it's non-strategic. I think there's a lot of power in benefits, but just, doing the minimum
Right.
in recruiting and benefits and compensation, etc. I think great HR shows up very differently in a unified way, where there are no silos within HR, right? So it's not, I've gone through so many systems and HR professionals, and usually we take a lot of pride in saying, I'm in talent acquisition, I'm in learning and development, I run D&I programs, I'm the HR business partner, and this is my client, and why would you ever speak to my client without going through me? So weak HR is very siloed. Strong HR is unified. Strong HR has that one HR voice to it.
Yeah.
Weak HR is reactive. Strong HR is proactive. Just think about this COVID time right now. And there's so much that is changing in the workplace, Jon. I mean, who would have imagined in December that most of our non-essential workers will be working from home, and the companies will still find ways to make that happen and still stay productive, and some more productive than we were when we were all showing up to work, right? 9 to 5.
Right.
So there's so much changing around workforce dynamic, how we work, where we work from, how the teams come together, even virtually, how employers find a way to scale communications virtually to stay everybody aligned and going in a good way. This is a fantastic moment, I think. As hard as the situation is, as much suffering there is right now, I think for HR to kind of reimagine what the culture and workforce dynamic looks like after this is over and this calms down, it's a tremendous moment.
Yeah, I think one of the things I'm seeing is, thank you for that, I'm seeing companies who had their values on their walls are really living those. Some are very seamlessly living those and have adapted and pivoted relatively quickly. And those where there's just, they weren't really living them, and now it's hard to live them remotely. So they have to kind of start from scratch. And it also is a very eyes wide open moment for knowing if you have the right people in the right seats doing the right things. And so I want to talk about talent acquisition because especially in today's world, I believe, especially because of COVID, it's interesting. I coach companies all over the world, and I've worked with so many companies that have been trying to figure out how to work remotely, do a 4-day work week, flex time, share time, all of this. And they've been spending years and they haven't been able to, whether it's trust their people, figure it out, wrap their arms around it. We all had to do it in 2 weeks. And so now it almost is like, it doesn't have to be geographically, like your VP of sales doesn't have to be in the office. I could be in Detroit managing a team around the country. So no longer are you just isolated to be where you are geographically. And I think that's going to change things in a dramatic way, which makes HR's job even more important, in my opinion, even more important. And so can you just kind of talk about talent acquisition and how that is and where it's going?
Absolutely. I think talent acquisition is one of the most important arms of the HR function. And it doesn't start with just getting the candidates in the door. It starts way beyond that, in a very proactive way, to really understanding what the workforce planning and strategy needs to be for the company, not for today, but also for the future, right? So starting with future in mind, in terms of the location strategy, understanding the marketplace, understanding where the competition is going, what kind of skills can be taught, what are the skills that need to be acquired from outside of the company. So understanding all of the dynamic of, where the company is going, what is the strategy of the company, and then aligning your talent acquisition strategies with it. It's very, very important. Something that I've seen, at least in the last 5 years, a lot of progress in the talent acquisition, where the TA, we call it TA, the TA consultants are more like consultants, not just you give me the requisition, I'll go find candidates for you, right? So it's really having those strategic dialogues in the intake meeting with the business leaders, really trying to understand, what do you want to hire, why do you want to hire it, right? And then kind of devising strategies to bring the talent in the door. So all of that, and I think the systems part of talent acquisition has become really important too. So having the systems that can do the data mining for you, kind of internally, for internal candidates who might be available for a given requisition, as well as for the external candidates. So how you mine the data, how you kind of look at your potential candidates. I think the candidate value proposition, the employee value proposition, something that's very attached to the culture of the company, right? So who you are as a company, and then how you embed this into your talent acquisition practices in terms of how you're going to the market, how you're branding yourself as an employer, how you're then building that candidate pipeline months or even years in advance of when you might need that person, right? So there's a lot of kind of proaction that is required there. I think those are some good trends out there, especially in the COVID time. I do want to highlight something that the talent acquisition organization in a variety of companies is playing a very important role. We know that there are a lot of companies out there who can't afford to have as big of a workforce, right? Who are having to manage a variety of restructurings across the board. And then there are companies who can't hire fast enough, right? I mean, so it's an interesting dynamic. And I have seen the talent acquisition experts and the HR leaders from a variety of companies kind of coming together and saying, I can loan my talent to you on a temporary basis till I'm in a position to keep them employed, or here's a talent base that we have and you have a need, so go ahead and connect. I was reading an email, Pat Waiters and a few of her colleagues have come together to enable a platform like this. You have a need, I have a talent, and let's connect them together so everybody can have a win-win out of this. So again, thinking out of the box, really worrying about the culture of the company, and then embedding into the HR processes. The tools and data play a very important role, and the futuristic view on who you want to hire and where and why is very, very important.
Yeah, I agree with you. I think I love when you talked about a candidate pipeline. That's my dog. Or my dogs.
It's
I think a candidate pipeline is huge. I talk a lot about that when I'm coaching clients when it comes to succession planning. A lot of times people think succession planning is just the CEO, but it's really everybody in the organization. And what are you doing you should, what I say is ABR, always be recruiting. You should always be recruiting.
Well, that's a good one.
Yeah, you can steal it, make it your own. But it's true. I think if you're not always recruiting, then you have to be building, it may take 50 interviews and 100 phone screens to find one right person for what you're looking for. So recruiting should be an ongoing thing, whether it's with HR, whether it's in collaboration with HR or a recruiter, something should be, moving to, it should always be moving to look for the best. Let me ask you this, Richa. So a company's listening to this right now and saying, we really need our own HR department. What's the first step in hiring the right person to start their HR department the right way? And what type of skill set are you looking for? Not you personally, but this company.
Yes, absolutely. I think, first of all, this leader, if you're starting a new organization, this leader has to be an SME, but doesn't have to know it all. I think, this leader needs to have the right mindset of course, experience in HR. I think that comes very handy. But have the right mindset to lead such a function.
Right.
And there are certain traits that I have, as I think of my favorite HR leaders out there who I have a lot of respect for, and I think about, what are their top characteristics? And I name a few, such as, just courageous leadership. It takes, HR is not for people who do not know how to speak the truth, or to hold your own, or to hold up the mirror when the situation gets really tough.
Right.
So the fearlessness and courage is very, very important. The other thing is horizontal leadership. So in HR, again, I keep repeating myself, one HR mindset is super important for everybody, and especially in the HR leader who you're going to go hire and recruit. Somebody who can be that integrator at the top of the house. So that's the second one. The third, I would say, is inclusive leadership. And this person has to role model what inclusive leadership looks like at the top of the company, with the executive team, as well as within the HR organization. The fourth thing would be data centricity. I think not just looking at the dashboards for the sake of it because it looks cool,
Right.
because you want to learn more and use data to predict some of the kind of the workforce trends, and that's where your strategic muscle around defining HR and culture for the future comes into the picture. So somebody who's able to look at the data, read the market, read the business, and is able to kind of look around the corner. The most important thing, John, is somebody who's kind.
Yeah.
I think in order for one to be a brilliant HR leader, you've got to be a good human being.
Yeah.
I think that's a prerequisite, and you can't shortcut that. I mean, it's just, there's no other way around it.
Yeah.
You've got to be a good human being who knows how to give before you get.
Yeah. Yeah. I think that's so important. You gotta manage from the heart. And yeah, I know that is so, and that's not easy to find, a person that can manage from the heart while strategically being able to use their brain and make decisions. I've always said, I've never felt like I ever had to raise my voice, but I can be firm and direct and hold someone accountable. And that's, I think, what you're talking about too. It doesn't mean because you're kind that you can't be firm, direct, get your point across, hold someone accountable, and have the authority to do it. But I agree with you, and I think even more today. I love how you're talking about looking at the future. When I look at some studies that say by the year 2030, 85% of the jobs that will exist do not exist today, and that by the year 2025, 75% of the workforce globally will be millennials. So I always kind of assumed that from 2025 to 2030, it was going to be like the internet boom of 1995 to 2000. And I think COVID accelerated all of this, especially because I think there's another study, and I may be getting the year wrong, but by 2025 or 2027, 50% of the global workforce will be freelancers. And I think all of everything that's going on right now with COVID is going to accelerate that. So to your point, when you're looking at the future and data, it's not just the data of today, but the data of 10 years from now on what this decade is going to look like.
Absolutely. And it's going to evolve in such interesting ways. And thank you for calling out the gig economy. And that is huge right now. And the playbook hasn't been written. I think there are companies out there like Uber and Lyft and Lime, they're charting the ways in ensuring that we know how to manage that workforce, but nobody has the playbook right now. Even the policies and procedures and the laws around that, all of us know about AB5, right? I mean, all of that is being written right now. So you're right. The next 5 to 10 years are going to be very, very interesting.
Yeah, it's going to be fun. It's going to be fun to watch. It's going to be fun to watch. Once we get through this COVID and the devastation of all of that, and my thoughts and prayers go out to all of those people who are, affected by it. But it is outside of that. It's going to be a tremendous decade. Let's talk about you for a second, because I think one of the things COVID has done is, and I know it's done for me, is caused me to just have some space to pause and to breathe. And I'm still working really hard. I'm working a lot every day like I normally was, 10, 12-hour days. But I have pauses where I can take space to just not run as fast. And I'm with my family more. And we're having dinners every night. And so I have found so many pauses, and it's been amazing. And you're taking a pause right now, which I think is great. And so just kind of talk a little bit about that, because I think, it's important, and I think you could shed some good light on that.
Absolutely. And I'm glad you asked. Yes, I am in, I would say, week 8 or maybe 10 of total bliss. In my career, I'd been going and I never stopped for 20 years. And this is the first time I'm taking this opportunity to just pause and get some rest and really think through what do the next 20 years look like. So I am, first of all, just grateful that I'm in a position to even do this because I completely understand not everybody is. So it is going really, really well. And I like structure, some structure in my head. So I always have frameworks and mental models for what my life looks like right now and how do I make the best of it. So I'm happy to share kind of how I'm approaching it. So it was close to the end of last year when I made a decision that it was time. There were so many opportunities coming my way. There had been a large scale change at PayPal in the organization that left me, not really excited about what I was doing. So I had a conversation, and then we made a decision that it's good for me to just transition, and then I will take a few months to recharge myself. That, of course, was pre-COVID. So you might sit there and think, whoa, wow, geez, Richa, great timing for you to take a break. But here I am. This is my time. And I'm, again, blessed to have this break. So a few things that I'm putting in practice that are really helping me, Jon. And I'm not suggesting that these will work for everybody. So I'm just going to say it. And
No, yeah.
It's just hopefully some of these is going to make sense to you. So the first thing is just I'm allowing time for reflection, right? I mean, taking time to kind of, center myself. And I remind myself often, remember, Richa, when you wanted what you currently have.
Mm-hmm.
And that one question is just so powerful, and it centers me in a good way. And I'm taking a lot of time for self-care, for just learning new things, living in a new way. Just something on the personal side, I am so terrible at baking. I can never get anything good out of my oven. But a couple of weeks ago, I and my son, we baked what I would call a respectable loaf of banana nut bread, and I'm so proud of it. Like, so the joy and happiness is coming in small packages, very different packages than I am used to.
Right.
But it's very, very rewarding. Second thing is embracing boredom. It bothered me. The first month, it bothered me a lot, right? When you wake up and you're like, oh gosh, I've got to spend the entire day just with myself doing what? So you look for meaning in each day, every day. But so I started to do a lot of research around boredom and productivity and things like that. And I learned something very interesting that I do want to share today is
please.
When we're bored, we activate in our brains something called a default mode, right? So where our bodies go on autopilot, but our brains get really, really busy, right? That's when we connect the disparate ideas, we solve those nagging problems, we create a narrative for ourselves. We sit down and plan and do something called an autobiographical planning, where we kind of take the note of all the big moments that have happened so far, set new goals for ourselves, and set the steps, right? So all of that happens. And it's such a strange concept to embrace, right? I'm bored and I'm still productive, but that's true. I think when you're extremely bored, that's when you bring your most productive and creative self to yourself. So try it. It really works.
I love it. If you could send me some of those links, I'd love to read.
I absolutely will. And I'll tell you something, Jon. I used to, as a child, write poetry. And I hadn't written anything in the last 30 years. And all of a sudden, in the last couple of months, I'm writing poetry again.
Yeah.
Right. And just things are just coming out of me. I'm writing articles. I'm, kind of finding my own ways to give back. And it's absolutely rewarding.
Yeah.
The other thing that I'm doing is I'm staying true to my promise. Just because I made a decision pre-COVID to take a break, I still wanted to take a couple of quarters, and I'm still in it, right? And as hard charging as I am, as I've been, it is hard to pause, right? Grass is always greener. So I'm sitting here thinking, why did I make the decision when I made it? But I remind myself, this is my time. I still have to stay true to my intent, and getting the hold of those voices inside your head. I think that's perhaps the most difficult.
Or other people's voices inside your head.
Other people's and your own.
Right.
What are you doing? Why are you doing what you're doing? So I think managing those voices is very, very important. Staying connected with your advisors and mentors. I'm blessed with many.
That's huge.
So just reach out to people and make connections, check in on them, make sure they're doing okay.
Yeah.
Act of gratitude. So really practice it. Nurturing your intellectual is very important. If you're, anything like me, it is, especially in this time, it is so hard, Jon, to be on the sidelines. Right. And not giving the way that I've been used to.
Yeah.
But you've got to find other creative ways. So I'm starting to again write. I'm consulting a little bit. I'm doing my podcast. So that all of that, I've got to take care of. And then the last thing I would say is acknowledging what is happening. The situation is hard right now. So many people losing their lives. So many people losing their employment and ways of earning a living. And it is a hard time.
Yeah.
But you've got to first acknowledge it and be okay with it. And it as hard as it sounds, you've got to be okay with it and learn to live in the moment and stay positive for the future, right? I mean, I often think about the big adversities that I've faced in my life, and I've most of the times, come out of those stronger. And this is going to be no different. So often reminding yourself of those things is really helpful.
Yeah. That was like a mini master's class, Richa. It was great. You should take everything you just said. You write some great stuff. I read your stuff on LinkedIn. It's great for those who want to follow you. But that was great. That was a great tutorial. And whether you're working or not working, right? Depending, we all, at least right now, have time and have to be a little bit more, I think, conscious of it. If you are working, to carve out that time and time block, be a master of your calendar and carve out that time. But one of the things I just want to highlight what you said is how you get back to center. And I think that's the trick. These are stressful times, and how each of us get back to center is different, but knowing how you get back to your center so you can get there faster is the key. So you can open up and ignite all that great stuff that you're doing for yourself. Well, I can understand why GE and PayPal and any company that you worked with is probably missing you right now, because you are a pleasure to connect with. I loved our conversation, and I think you're going to open up the eyes and raise some awareness on companies who just are not doing HR the right way, but they think they're close. And so thank you for shedding that. And I, like Jack Welch and you, believe that talent acquisition and everything that happens in HR is some of the most critical stuff. So thank you for the work that you've done. Thank you for what you shared today. And I wish you and your family continued safety and health and a good year.
Thank you. And I just want to take a moment and say to all my peer HR professionals that you're on the side, on the front lines right now in leading through this big, gnarly, complex change, and also designing the re-entry for the workforce, kind of post-COVID. And you are working so hard, and I salute you. Just take good care of yourselves as you're taking care of everybody inside the organization. And thank you, Jon, for this opportunity.
No, thank you. Thank you. I appreciate it, and we'll stay in touch.
Okay, take care of yourself.
That was great.